Oh wow, she's only gotten so much bigger since then, and is running around right next to me. But she's so much better at competing with Oliver when they play now. Anyway, my name is Craig, and that was my adorable dogs, Oliver and Chloe. I'm a senior software engineer with a decade of experience with working for Fortune 500 companies, and I'm here to teach the critical things that are needed to build, reliable, scalable, enterprise-grade software. My first video series, as I mentioned in my cute little intro video, will focus on testing, specifically testing front-end applications with React Testing Library. Now this video series expects that you already have a background in JavaScript and React. You already know how to work with these tools. All the code will be written in TypeScript. If you only know JavaScript, that's fine. You'll still be able to follow along. However, I strongly encourage you to pick up TypeScript. If you care about producing quality software, TypeScript is just flat out light years beyond JavaScript in terms of the guardrails it puts in place in the software you create. Now, why am I teaching testing using React Testing Library? Well, the reason is it's one of, in my opinion, only two good testing solutions that currently exist for the front end with React. Those solutions are Cypress and React Testing Library. Now, Cypress is wonderful. I love it. I use it constantly in my side projects. I'll probably do a video about it at some point in the near future. However, it is a much heavier solution than React Testing Library, which is the reason why a lot of teams tend to go with RTL as their main testing solution. Now, some of you may be asking, what about Enzyme? The answer is Enzyme is dead, and that's a good thing. Here's the thing. Enzyme was great at its time. It did great things for a number of years, but it heavily relied on component internals, which is okay, but it resulted in a struggle to test the user experience. It required you to basically bypass how the component would behave at runtime, directly manipulate internal APIs, and then simulate behavior. If you wanted to write an enzyme test that actually mirrored user interaction flows, users clicking through the page and all of that, it was painful. And I'm speaking about that as someone who has written a lot of enzyme tests over the years. React Testing Library takes a completely different approach. It actively tries to prevent you from accessing the low-level APIs in your components, in the DOM, and all of it. It tries to keep you contained to only what the user can see, only what the user can do. And this is not to make your life more difficult, it's actually to make your life easier, because fundamentally it forces you to write tests that mirror what the user is going to do when interacting with your application, which results in tests that have a much better guarantee that the code is going to behave the same way the users will expect it to. And that's the whole point of what we're doing. We're not just writing tests for the sake of writing tests, we're trying to guarantee the behavior of our code at runtime. Now we're about to get into the setup right now. We're going to go through how to set up React Testing Library and do just a very simple hello world example to get your feet wet with it. The videos that follow will go through all the core React Testing Library APIs, as well as how to design and architect your tests and handle writing tests for larger and more complex components and handling the problems you can run into along the way. So we're going to take a quick little break and then we'll get right back into it. They're so cute.
She's getting it strong.
She is.
Oliver loves that.
Mm-hmm. He's letting her. Alrighty folks, so the code you're going to see here is available on my GitHub. There are links in the description, links to the code at the start of this video, and links to the code at the end of the video if you just want to skip ahead and see the result. Now this code is just a simple UI for the free JSON placeholder API. It's styled like a mock social media app. Now, to begin setting up tests with React Testing Library, we first need to install it. And so we're just going to do a very simple PNPM, or whatever your package manager of choice is, add for the testing library React package. Just going to run that real quick. And here we go. We've got that library installed, and it can be used on its own. However, it is strongly recommended to only ever use it with its support packages. So, of these three packages, the first two are the most important. Jest DOM contains a variety of extensions to the expect function that allow you to perform special UI test-focused assertions that'll really help with writing your tests. And the user event package allows for simulating user interaction with what is rendered on the quote-unquote screen the same way as your users actually will interact. This third one, testing library DOM, is a transitive dependency that I need to include simply because PNPM is super strict with transitive dependencies. If you're using a different package manager, you can probably skip this one. Hello! Oh, they're just running around being crazy. Alrighty. Now that we've installed all of these packages, we need to start configuring them. Now, as is a common practice in tests, I have a setup file put together. And by the way, I'm using vtest here because I love vtest. It goes great with Vite, my favorite bundling solution. It's blazing fast for test execution, but I realize a lot of my viewers may still be using Jest, and Jest is perfectly fine, so I'll call out any differences between vtest and Jest. For example, setup files right here in the vtest config would be setup files after env in the Jest config. But either way, we're preparing a setup file that will run before our test suite. And in this setup file, we add a single import statement. What this is going to do is it's going to auto-configure those fancy matchers I mentioned that are added to the expect function. And this will give us all the capabilities to run assertions on our UI code globally throughout our test suite. I will point out a few key things about this line. It might look super simple, but there's a few gotchas. First, if you're using it with vtest, you must have global set to true. Otherwise, this will blow up. You can use it with global set to false. That's actually my personal preference, but there's a bunch of extra steps you have to do to work around it that we're going to skip over right now. Lastly, if you're using Jest, you can drop the vtest and just import the root of the library directly, and that is how you'll set up the matchers for Jest itself. Now, with this all set up, the next thing we need to do is prepare our environment. By default, all tests, whether it's vtest or Jest, are run in the node environment, but that doesn't help us if we're testing the UI. So what we need to do is we need to set things up so that our tests will be run in a browser-like environment. To do that, we're going to install the JS DOM package. Like if you're using Jest, you'll install the Jest environment JS DOM package, but it's basically the same thing. We're setting up a mock browser environment in our test suite in order to perform our tests with our code as it will be in the browser. Once that is installed, we just need to configure it right here. In this case, it's the same in both Jest and vtest. There's a property called environment that you set to JS DOM. Nice and simple. At this point, we're all ready for our tests, but there is, oh my God, they're going at it. But there is one more thing we're going to add to this, and that is we are going to add ESLint rules. Now, ESLint is a great tool to help guarantee that your code follows good standards and practices, and I personally prefer to have very strict rules in place when I'm working on my projects. So, Testing Library does ship with its own set of ESLint rules, and we can install them by installing two more packages. One is the Jest DOM plugin, and the second is the Testing Library plugin. One for the matchers, one for the framework. So just running this install command real quick, and now we've got those plugins installed. And so in our ESLint config file, as you can see, mine is quite opinionated already. We're just going to set up the 2 plugins with our rules for our Jest DOM matchers and our rules for React testing library. So now at this point, all setup tasks are complete. We are 100% ready to go with our very first test. And for this quick little introduction, which is all we're doing here, I'm just going to write a nice simple hello world.test file to start things off. So right now I've put together this hello world file right here. And we're going to start off with just a simple test declaration for a test called hello world. And now it's time to see how we will actually set things up using React Testing Library. Now the first thing you would always do using RTL is import a function called render. Render is nice and simple. Render just means whatever you pass into here, which is always going to be JSX, will be rendered on the quote-unquote DOM that is being used by the test. So for this case, we're just going to do a very simple h1 hello world, and this is going to be rendered on the DOM right now. Now, render does return a result with a whole bunch of options in it. However, this is here mainly for legacy reasons. The RTL team discourages the use of what is returned by render in the overwhelming majority of cases. Instead, once we have rendered this on the DOM, we can interact with it by using an import called screen. Screen allows us to interact with what is currently rendered on the quote-unquote screen. Again, there's not a real screen, but effectively it's there. So what we're going to do is use screen, and we're going to use our first React testing library selector. I'm going to talk about these a lot more in the next video. We're just going to grab by text that is visible on the screen, and we're going to grab by the text hello world. And we're going to run an assertion on this. Expect to be visible. So we expect that there is text hello world that is visible on the screen right now. And here we have it. We can just run this test right now, and as you can see, everything passes. Now, one more quick comment I want to make here. We are get by text and any get by assertion in RTL, which I'll talk more about in the next video, will throw an error if it cannot find a match. Technically, this could work like an assertion all on its own. However, the RTL team strongly recommends wrapping any get by statement in an assertion to make it more clear to other developers on your team that this is not a mistake that you've added this line, that you very much expect this to be an assertion in your test. I told you, she's gotten a lot bigger since that intro video, and a lot more feisty. Anyway, I hope you've all enjoyed what has been a pretty simple introduction to React testing libraries so far, but this gives us the foundation that we need. From here, we're going to start learning about the various selectors, events, actions that are available in RTL before moving into some more common and sophisticated scenarios that you're going to have to handle when testing, larger scale applications. So if you've enjoyed the content today, feel free to wag your tail and like and subscribe. And I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much.